All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to jump into something a little bit different.
Okay.
We're going back in time to the year 2007
Oh, wow. Okay.
to take a look at a dating advice book from that era,
A dating advice book from 2007.
right? And I think you're going to find this pretty interesting, some of the advice in this book.
I can only imagine what dating advice was like in 2007. This should be interesting.
It's pretty wild, and it really, I think, gives us a good perspective on how much
Right.
things have changed.
Right.
So this book has kind of this, like, edgy tone to it. It's, like, very over the top.
Okay.
You know, it's got chapters like the slut factor
Oh, my gosh.
and the 5 categories.
Okay, interesting. So very, like, direct and in your face.
Yeah, and the whole kind of philosophy of this book is
Yeah.
basically saying, like, avoid dinner dates at all costs.
Okay.
Like, dinner dates are the death of romance.
Okay.
Instead, what you should do is you should plan a series of activities and basically lead the woman through this, like, orchestrated experience.
Oh, wow. So very, like, take charge.
Very take charge.
Alpha male energy.
Yeah, it's all about, you know, being the one in control, making the decisions, keeping her guessing what's going to happen next.
So how does that resonate, I guess, with today's dating world?
Yeah.
Because everything seems so much more collaborative now.
I think it's a very different approach from what a lot of people are looking for today.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people value more of that, like, collaborative, authentic,
Right.
you know, feeling like they're both on the same page kind of thing.
Yeah, like an equal partnership as opposed to
Right.
this one person kind of leading the whole thing.
Right. And this is all about, you know, the man taking charge and leading the interaction.
Interesting.
So it's definitely a different perspective. And, you know, one of the things that this author spends a lot of time talking about is, you know, female psychology.
Oh, boy.
He's got a lot of ideas
I bet he does.
about how women think. And one of the concepts that he introduces that I think is particularly interesting is this idea of the slut cage.
Oh, my.
So again, you know, very provocative language.
Yeah, not very PC these days.
Not very PC. And basically what he's saying is that women are constantly navigating this tension between wanting to be seen as desirable and wanting to maintain this, like, good girl image.
Right. So kind of playing into those classic stereotypes.
Exactly. And he argues that because of this, women fear social repercussions for being too forward or expressing their desires openly.
Which is, I mean, sadly a reality for a lot of women even back then.
Yeah.
I mean, fast forward to today, I think a lot of those pressures are still there in different ways, but those anxieties are probably still quite relatable to a lot of women.
Absolutely. I think that idea of, you know, wanting to be seen as desirable,
Right.
but also not wanting to face judgment or negative consequences
Right.
for, you know, being perceived as too promiscuous or too forward
Yeah.
is something that a lot of women can probably relate to.
Definitely. And it speaks to that kind of double standard that often exists, you know?
Yeah.
Where men are applauded for certain behaviors and women are judged or shamed for the same things.
Right. And so because of this perceived slut cage, the author emphasizes that men need to take the lead when it comes to physical touch.
Okay.
But he's also very careful to say that, you know, you have to read the woman's nonverbal cues.
Okay.
You don't want to come across as creepy.
Of course, that's always a danger zone, right? Like navigating that physical touch, especially early on.
Right. It's a very delicate balance.
Definitely. You want to be respectful.
Yeah.
You know, you want to make sure that you're reading those signals correctly and not misinterpreting anything.
And I think, you know, even though he's talking about this in the context of 2007,
Yeah.
the importance of consent and respect
Right.
is something that's even more important in modern dating.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's crucial.
So I think that's a takeaway that we can definitely still apply today.
Absolutely.
Even if some of his other ideas are a little bit questionable.
A little bit out there.
Yeah, a little out there.
Okay, so he's saying men should take the lead, avoid the slut cage, be respectful, but not creepy. Where do we go from here?
Well, this is where things start to get really interesting because he introduces this whole system of categorizing men.
Oh, boy.
And I think you're going to love this one.
I can't wait. Okay, so he's saying men should take the lead, avoid the slut cage, be respectful, but not creepy. Where do we go from here?
Well, this is where things start to get really interesting because he introduces this whole system of categorizing men.
Oh, boy.
And I think you're going to love this one.
I can't wait.
He claims that women subconsciously categorize men into one of 5 groups.
Okay.
Creepy friend zone, orbiter,
Right.
provider husband, and the seducer.
So he's got all the bases covered.
Yeah, and so each one of these categories represents a different level of romantic success or failure.
It's like a video game almost.
It is. It's very much like a game, and he's giving you the playbook for how to win. And of course, the The category that he wants all men to aspire to is the seducer.
Naturally.
But he's also completely terrified of the friend zone.
Right, of course, the dreaded friend zone.
The dreaded friend zone, he believes that once a woman sees you as just a friend, any chance of romance is gone for good.
That's a pretty, like, black and white view.
Yeah.
I feel like that's not always the case, is it?
I mean, I think we all probably know people who have started out as friends and then eventually developed romantic feelings for each other. So it's definitely not impossible.
I think relationships are a little bit more fluid than that.
Right. But in this author's mind,
Okay.
the friend zone is like this inescapable trap.
Once you're in, you're in.
Once you're in, you're done. And so to avoid the friend zone, he suggests using humor.
Humor's good, though, right?
Humor is good, but also he suggests using this thing he calls the confusion game.
The confusion game, what is that?
So basically it's about like sending mixed signals.
Oh, no.
Like being a little bit hot and cold.
It's a little bit manipulative.
A little bit manipulative, a little bit confusing to basically keep the woman guessing.
So it's like almost like playing games almost.
It is very much like playing games. And he believes that by doing this, you can position yourself as a potential romantic partner and not just a friend.
So you're not just a buddy. You're someone who could be a lover.
Exactly.
Interesting. And I guess, like I said, I mean, a little manipulative perhaps, but I guess at least he's acknowledging that there's a difference between like a platonic friend and someone that you might want to be romantic with.
Right. And so he also talks about these other categories like the orbiter.
The orbiter.
Which is the guy who's always kind of around. Like he's in the friend group, but he's never quite...
He's never quite in the inner circle.
He's never quite in the inner circle. He's just kind of orbiting.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And then you've got the provider husband.
Provider husband.
Which is the guy who's seen as like reliable and stable.
Okay.
But maybe not exciting or passionate.
I see. So you're safe, but you're boring. Right. So it's like he's creating these very specific roles.
He is.
And it seems like to him, attraction is all about fitting into these categories.
It's all about the category that you fall into.
But I feel like people are attracted to such different things, you know?
Of course.
What one person finds attractive, another person might not, you know?
Absolutely. And I think, reducing attraction down to these like 5 categories is a little bit overly simplistic.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more nuance to it than that.
A lot more nuance for sure. All right, so let's move on to his actual dating strategies.
Okay.
Because I think this is where things get even wilder.
Okay. All right.
So he outlines these different approaches with names like the tryout date,
okay,
adventure dates, my world dates, and even mysterious dates.
Mysterious dates. Okay, we got to dive into that one. What's a mysterious date?
So for a mysterious date, he instructs the woman to wear a specific outfit.
Okay.
Bring random items like Brillo pads and nutmeg.
Brillo pads and nutmeg.
And meet him at a designated location without knowing anything about the plan.
What is he planning with Brillo pads and nutmeg?
That is the mystery.
That's the mystery. Okay, so like he's going for the whole like intrigue and keeping her guessing?
Exactly. It's all about like the element of surprise and unpredictability.
But I feel like that would only work if you already had a certain level of comfort and trust with the person.
Right.
Like, I don't know if I would just bring Brillo pads and nutmeg for someone I just met.
Yeah, I think this is definitely a product of its time.
Right, like a 2007 thing.
A 2007 thing for sure.
Okay.
But this whole emphasis on mystery and unpredictability really ties into his larger philosophy of taking charge and leading the woman through this carefully curated experience.
So it's less about actually connecting with the other person, more about like following his script.
It's very much about following the script.
Interesting.
And, I think it makes you wonder, is this approach to dating really about connecting with the other person, or is it more about asserting control?
Right. Is it about the connection, or is it about the game?
Or is it about the game?
Interesting.
And I think that's a question that's really relevant when we think about how dating has evolved.
Right, because now it seems like authenticity is much more valued.
Authenticity, vulnerability.
Yeah.
Being yourself.
Being yourself, being genuine.
Not playing games.
Not playing games.
So I guess you could say that this book, even though it's got some questionable advice, it highlights how much things have changed.
It really does.
And maybe that's the value of it,
Yeah.
Looking back and seeing how far we've come.
And maybe even extracting a few nuggets of wisdom.
Right. Maybe there's something we can learn from it.
Like even if we ditch the Brillo pads.
The Brillo pads have got to go.
The Brillo pads have got to go.
Okay.
Maybe there's something to be said for creating memorable experiences.
Yeah, like putting some effort into it.
Putting some effort into it, thinking outside the box.
Yeah, going beyond just like the same old dinner in a movie. Right. And using those experiences as a way to connect with someone.
Yeah, to create those shared
To
memories.
create those shared memories and to really get to know each other.
So I guess what he's getting at, even if the method is strange,
Yeah.
is that you should be thoughtful and put some effort into dating.
Right. And I think that's something we can all agree on.
Yeah, definitely.
So we've spent this whole deep dive looking back at this 2007 dating advice.
Yeah.
And some of it has been pretty out there.
Definitely a different time.
A different time for sure.
Yeah.
But even with all the like cringe-worthy moments, is there anything we can actually learn from this blast from the past?
I think so. You know, even if the methods are outdated or even a little problematic, there's often some underlying truth that you can kind of extract.
Okay, so what nuggets of wisdom can we pull from this 2007 dating guide?
Well, one thing that jumps out at me is this emphasis on confidence and taking initiative.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, modern dating is more about collaboration, but there's still something to be said for expressing your interest clearly.
Yeah.
And, you know, actually making a move.
So maybe it's not about like planning the entire date down to the minute.
Right.
But it's about being assertive enough to, you know, suggest activities and make decisions.
Just show that you're interested.
Show that you're interested and you're engaged.
Right. And that you're capable of, like, taking the lead, but not in a controlling way.
Right. It's about finding that balance.
Yeah.
Between leading and being respectful.
Exactly. And, you know, speaking of engagement, he does talk about creating unique and memorable dates.
Okay.
Which I think is something that's still relevant today.
Yeah.
You know, ditch the Brillo pads.
Ditch the Brillo pad.
But the idea of putting some thought and effort into planning a date that's going to be memorable and create those shared experiences, I think that's still a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, who wants to just do the same old dinner on a movie?
Exactly. It's about thinking outside the box.
Right.
And giving the other person a sense of like, wow, this person really put some thought into this.
Yeah, and it gives you something to talk about.
Right.
It gives you something to connect over.
Exactly. It creates those shared memories and helps you get to know each other on a deeper level.
Okay, so memorable dates. Good.
Good.
Brillo pads, bad.
Bad.
Got it.
What else?
Well, another thing that he kind of touches on is this whole idea of the friend zone.
Right.
Which, again, if you know, might seem a little extreme.
Yeah.
But it does reflect a real concern that a lot of people have, which is how do you communicate romantic interest without risking the friendship?
Right, because nobody wants to ruin a good friendship.
Exactly.
By, you know, putting their feelings out there and then...
Yeah, and getting rejected.
Having it be awkward.
Right, so it's a delicate situation.
It is. And so instead of resorting to, like, manipulative tactics...
Right, no confusion game.
No confusing game.
Please.
I think the takeaway here is that honesty and open communication...
Yes.
...are ultimately the best approach. Absolutely, even if it's uncomfortable.
Even if it's uncomfortable.
Even if it feels risky.
Yeah.
You know, being honest about your feelings.
Yeah.
And respecting the other person's response.
Yeah.
I think that's key.
Absolutely. All right, so we've learned a lot.
We have.
From this deep dive into 2007 dating advice.
Yeah, it's been a journey.
It has been a journey.
Back in time.
Back in time. And, you know, some of it's been cringeworthy.
Some of it's been questionable.
But I think ultimately it's a good reminder that even though dating trends change, the fundamental desire for connection, for intimacy, for meaningful relationships, that never goes away.
That's timeless.
That's timeless. And so maybe the best dating advice, no matter what era you're in, is to just be yourself.
Be yourself.
Be respectful.
And be open to the possibilities.
I love it. That's great advice.
All right. So on that note, we're going to wrap up our deep dive into the world of 2007 dating advice.
But before we go, I want to leave you with a thought-provoking question.
Okay.
If you were writing a dating guide for today's world, what key principles would you include?
Ooh, that's a good one.
What advice would you offer to help people navigate the complexities of modern dating? Let us know your thoughts, and until next time, happy dating.